Welcome to Horror Fam to HHN365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Mike, and as always, I'm here with my co-hosts, Duff, Jess, and Jonathan. How's it going, guys?
Hey, what's up?
What's
You're
up?
back. Welcome back.
We're here. Yeah, I'm back. I'm
Yay.
back.
You
Woo.
missed so much news, Mike. So
Oh my-
much news.
Mike, it was like a marathon.
I know. Yeah.
The
That's why we
four-page
don't have much
outline.
to cover.
We
Mostly
did
just
all.
news, right?
Yeah, usually I want news. I'm happy we get a break. Jesus.
Oh, that felt like a middle of the announcement season
I know,
episode
right?
last week.
Yeah. Well, on today's show, we'll go over a little bit of news, but mostly we will be going over our top 10 lists of parade building houses. But before we get to that, we have always find us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at HHN365 and on TikTok at HHN365pod. We have an amazing Discord. Please join us. The link is in the description, and we have a merch shop at HHN365.com. You want to leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134, and we will do our best to play it on the show. But we do have a little bit of news. Do we have any housekeeping? It doesn't look like we really do.
No, not really. Maybe next week we'll have some dates for stuff, but not right now.
Yeah, thank you for joining us in this for our events that we've had the last couple of the Discord event and the live. So we just did those. So thank you for joining us for if you joined us on those. But other than that, we had nothing really coming down the wheelhouse yet.
Yeah. So I think we should just step right into one of our favorite segments.
Murdy tweets.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We got a couple of Murdy tweets here. Not too much, not compared to last week where he did a whole giant Q&A. These are just the remnants of some questions he answered like days after we recorded. So we'll go over these probably pretty quickly. The first one is that someone asked, now that the Power Up Cafe is open, will the fire towers be pushed farther back? And he responded, undetermined. Yeah.
Thanks, John Murdy.
Who wants to take this next one?
All right, I'll do it. He was asked, will the go-go dancers ever return in the future? He simply responded with a crying gif. So I'm going to say no.
We got cheeky John Murdy this week.
I know, right?
Cheeky Murdy.
He's like, I'm just going to do this only with gifts.
I mean, Murdy's always a little cheeky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh. No, he's just trying to get that the Twitter engagement up by using GIFs. That's all it is. GIFs,
same
GIFs,
one.
whatever. What the fuck you call it?
It's technically
can-
GIF, but
I
say
don't care.
GIF.
I don't
You
care.
can
what
call
it's
it
called.
whatever you want.
We said
I go
GIF a
interchangeably.
decade before someone was like, no, actually, I created it and it's GIF. Well, we've been calling it GIF forever, so too late.
Now you want to speak up, bitch? Like,
I know.
Right.
whatever. I'll
All
take
right.
the next one.
Yeah, let's do it.
HHN Hollywood will most likely be using the T-pad tent, and we'll be using the H lot. Sorry, that confused me there. Explain this. Where is that?
So, T-Pad is where Holidays in Hell was, or Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and the H-Lot is where Chucky and Universal Monsters Unmasked was.
Gotcha.
I'm still not sure why he said most likely responded to the T-Pad. I think it was like he said there's still some work going around, getting done over there, but there probably will be a tent. Yeah, he said absolutely for the H-Lot. So I would expect both of these locations to return this year.
Wow, it's almost like it ties in directly to something that's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder what that is.
I'll take it. So we're going to hop over to Universal Studios Hollywood news in general. And this one's pretty fun because it's like a publicly official thing now that has come out. The Los Angeles County Department of Economic Opportunity posted a picture for a future model of Universal Studios Hollywood on their Facebook page. On this model, there are two buildings that can be seen in the H lot, which we've heard rumors about this. Could these two buildings be those structures that have been rumored? I'd say probably, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what else they would be for. I mean, there could be just for like other like back of house stuff, but I don't think that would be any like park stuff because of its location. I think it would make sense for it to be the rumored HHN thing, just due to the fact that it's the rumor has been around for a while, and now we have like some like actually some clues of, hey, now like it's actually on a model. I feel like the rumor is getting stronger and stronger as we go along this spec season.
Wasn't the rumor originally sprungs though? It was going to be just like permanent sprung tents were going to be the structures.
So there is a thought that these two, because if you look at the model, there's like just two buildings. There's a thought that these could just be placeholders for sprung tents, or maybe they're doing a thing where like I don't know, like a sprung tent inside of a building. I'm not particularly sure. So that's why this is we're still very up in the air about this. Um, but uh, but yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can interpret it, and yeah, I'm still leaning towards the HHN route, but it could be something else as well.
All right, let's move on to looks like we got some insider news and rumors.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this one because I feel strongly about this. So according to Legacy, he has heard, which is an HHN, he's an HHN insider. He's heard rumors about the property A Quiet Place appearing at Halloween Horror Nights, and stated that just because it's now making the rounds doesn't mean it's a new rumor. And he also clarified that this particular rumor came out of nowhere. He said it kind of just popped up, um, you know, just randomly. So take that as you will. Do any of us actually think that A Quiet Place could be coming to Halloween Horror Nights, or would we want it to come to Halloween Horror Nights?
I'm gonna say most likely no and hard no.
Yeah. Same. I just don't see it working. And we were talking about it before we started recording. I'm a fan of the first one. I never saw the second one. I don't care to see this prequel. I'm so sorry. It just doesn't seem necessary to me. And it at HHN just, I don't see it working.
Yeah, I think it's not like absolutely impossible, but I think it's just it'd be so hard to pull off because you have to make it like entirely, if you're doing the first, like if you're doing the first movie or the second movie, you have to make it entirely quiet, and the monsters themselves, like they've done alien type creatures before, but these things are also like really big and also always like on all fours, right, if I remember correctly. Like and I think it would be extremely hard to make every antagonist um those creatures, like especially because of their size too.
Hmm.
Um, I know the prequel. We were talking about this too. They're not going to. I don't know how far in the movie. They're not going to know, but they're not going to know that they need to be quiet for a while, probably, because it's before everything happens. So they're not going to know the rules. So I guess there is a case where, like in terms of the silent aspect, if they did the prequel, it wouldn't have to be silent if that's the way the new movie's going. But I still think it's probably unlikely, and I also don't really care for it coming in any capacity.
I will say it being Quiet Place 3 would make it definitely more likely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the film
That's
comes
true.
out in June, so not terrible timing for the event either. So yeah, that does make it definitely more of a possibility in my mind.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say I'm excited about this the way I kind of was excited about Five Nights at Freddy's. Is like it's not necessarily my cup of tea for the property wise, but I would be excited to see just how they were able to pull it off. Like I would be hesitant that it would be good, but I do get excited about them trying something that in my head would not be able to be pulled off very well, because like I think that's an exciting. I like that they're trying things, right? Not just getting the Halloween or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house again. I like that they're trying new properties, and especially properties that seem to push the boundaries and the limits of what a HHN house could be. That does excite me. So I'd be excited to see how they were able to do it if it does come.
I love that, Mike. I actually really like that take, Mike, because we haven't seen something like this. So I'll be a
True.
little less negative about it.
I mean, I might be negative after I see it, regardless. But
Correct. But I
but
like that, like optimistic, like going into it at
Yeah,
least.
it's the same thing with like Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, how are we going to pull this off with these giant animatronic type of things? Like, is it gonna? It could be
Yeah.
really bad, but it's exciting to see. Like, oh no, they actually, took this challenging thing that we all, and actually they were able to pull it off this way. Like, I'm excited about seeing if they are able to do those types of things.
No, I can definitely agree with that, especially someone being very tired of Myers coming in to the event and doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Do.
Exactly, just do, the similar kills. But yeah, I do like when they push the boundaries when it works. I think that is that's a really good way to look at it. And I also want to note once again that the fact that this rumor, like clarifying that this rumor kind of came out of nowhere, makes me also think that it's kind of just a fake thing floating around. Like this seems like the way this rumor came, not this rumor itself, but like where this came into the Discord atmosphere, because that's where it stemmed. Was that someone who makes a Twitter account that's just completely memes. Like it's not an actual account. It's all jokes. The person who made it clarified it's all jokes and doesn't matter. Like made a joke about, hey, Quiet Place is coming to Halloween Horror Nights. And then Legacy made a comment saying, hey, it seems other people have heard about, this rumor or something like that. And it's like, no, but that was a joke account. That was made for like a laugh. It wasn't real. So I'm
So
not
you're
actually.
calling Legacy a liar.
I'm
That's what I
Wants
heard.
to fight.
That's what I heard.
what I am saying is that while I think there is a way that this can be spread throughout the community, I don't think it was. I am theorizing that it was not spread, but from like correct sources, and it just managed to like it managed to hit Legacy from like from an angle. Like someone said it over here that meant it to be like a fake rumor, and it hit Legacy from a different angle, and maybe that's why he's just saying it out loud instead of like holding it for a clue or something, because he might not necessarily think it's happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Usually, Legacy, if there's like a meat to the bone, like of a rumor, he will hold that for a clue. The fact that he's just kind of being like, "Oh, I've actually heard that A Quiet Place isn't as strange as everyone thinks it." Like, I've
Mhm.
actually heard this rumored. It makes me think it's like he doesn't necessarily see it as like a real possibility. But
Yeah,
who
that's
knows?
why that's kind of my angle on at least his thinking of it, right? Like if he was confident in it, he wouldn't be talking about it so openly right now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Also, what does a rumor come out of nowhere really mean? Because if you're an insider and you're like really the first one outside of internal and like a few layers hearing this, doesn't every rumor just kind of come out of nowhere?
Yes.
I
Like it
guess
just pops
so.
up because it's not like, oh, it's floating here, it's floating there. It's like, but you're like going to be one of the first people to hear it, like in our
Mm.
realm. So doesn't everything just pop out of nowhere at the end of the day? I don't.
The only the
I mean,
only
there's
thing
going to
that
be a
makes me
few
think is
probably,
that it
but
was like a replacement. Like it was like I heard it was this, and then all of a
maybe,
sudden I've heard something drop out, and then
maybe.
now I didn't know what that was, and out of nowhere I'm hearing this could be the
Yeah. So
replacement.
like I have my list of IPs that are coming, and now suddenly this is in that, like, is now rumored. But
Yeah, and I haven't
Who?
heard that something's dropped out yet, or what he
yeah,
like doesn't know where it
maybe
fits in to what he thought was going to be
that
the
does make
lineup.
sense.
Who owns A Quiet Place? Do we know?
Paramount, I believe.
Okay, so not fully outside a realm of possibility.
No, and
No,
they're hurting for money. So
Mm-hmm.
if Universal was going to try to purchase it, they would probably be open to lending it.
Hmm.
makes sense.
Hey, Future 365 here. So, since we've recorded, we have a lot of news that we would like to add because we don't want to make you wait a whole nother week for this news. So, here we go. So, let's start with some HHN Orlando news. And this surprisingly involves an award that is not the Oscars, but Halloween Nightmare Fuel Wildfire has won a Brass Ring Award at the IAPA Honors 2024 in the category of Most Creative Halloween Production. And according to IAPA, it is the highest rated show in HHN history. Okay.
Yeah. Uh yeah, this I mean, I understand why Halloween Nightmare Fuel won this award. I only saw it once, but it was incredibly creative with all the
Mhm.
stunts they did and the story they were able to tell. It was a really impressive show.
Yeah, as always, super talented. I think the story's pretty creative overall, so well deserved. Well deserved.
Absolutely. But now we're going to move into the meat and potatoes of this particular extra news segment because we got a ton of HHN insider news that has been spreading all over. I mean, I'm sure you've already heard a lot of this, but spreading all over Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. And let's start with the small thing first. And all of these are going to, or most of these are going to be related to the insider legacy. And Legacy has heard a Hill house rumor, but he hasn't heard that rumor since January. So it is technically Silent Hill is a rumor. It just hasn't been, I guess, circulated amongst like himself like in a while. He hasn't heard it in a bit. How do we feel about that?
I mean, it could mean nothing, right? Like sometimes it seems like there are some super concrete rumors that come, and then you just kind of don't hear about them moving forward because it's like set in stone. Um, However, I would lean towards that not being the case with Silent Hill. It seems more of kind of a, I don't want to say out there, but not so like, it's not like, oh, Universal Monster, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. That could be worrisome if you're looking forward to that property coming to the event.
It definitely can be. I would definitely like to see it. I think it would be a really fun property to have. Especially with I know there's like a new movie, right? Or this year coming out
Hmm.
for Silent Hill. So like it would make sense. I hope this rumor gets more legs later on because I would like to see it.
Yeah, I think it's not something I need to see. I have seen it before at the
You
event,
have, yeah.
but I wouldn't be like upset about it by any means. I think it's a property that can do well potentially. So we'll see. I think it sounds like there's some more um, rumors that insiders seem more confident about. I guess we could say. So
Yes.
so I'm not gonna expect this to come at the moment, but I wouldn't hate if it did.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mhm.
Was it Legacy? Yeah, Legacy also heard that he heard the Ghostbusters house rumor, but in response to someone's tweet saying that he heard Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, he stated, "Who said Frozen Empire? Wasn't me."
Ooh.
So realistically, it sounds like he's kind of shooting down that it's Frozen Empire. Um, or he's really just like, hey, I didn't say that. I don't know, I didn't say it. Um, but that seems less likely than him being like, yeah, no, that's not coming. Don't put my name on that.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like he is inferring that it's what he's heard for Ghostbusters because obviously we've heard of Ghostbusters rumors before from Alicia Stella where she stated that the rumor when that she stated was that it would be based on the new films and Legacy seems to not believe that it'd be based on Frozen Empire here. Now it could be that he's thinking that since the original rumor was the new films, that it could just be both, right? It could be Afterlife and Frozen Empire, so it wouldn't
Hmm.
particularly just be one movie.
Yeah.
Or he could be referring to maybe it's not even the new movies, maybe it's just Ghostbusters in general. This could mean actually, like, I think a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to. It's so vague that it's tough to tell.
Hmm.
But at the very least, it clearly sounds like he doesn't want to be connected with just being Frozen Empire. So I think we can gather that much at least.
Yeah, and I think that's an important element. But it is interesting to think about though, because like if it's not just Frozen Empire, right? Frozen Empire and Afterlife. Just going by the trailers, we have not seen no Frozen Empire yet. It's not out yet. Frozen Empire is a very different aesthetic than Afterlife. Afterlife is very like it's kind of just treads the same beats as Ghostbusters, like as the original movie. From what I've seen, and it's a lot of it's not set in New York. Like I think most of it isn't set in New York at all. Actually, they barely go to New York in that movie. And Frozen Empire is completely in New York, and also it is completely frozen. So that's a completely different aesthetic. So in terms of the idea of like maybe he's just referring to it like being just the new movies, I don't even know how they both would fit together because they're both like literally in completely different places with completely different aesthetics. I don't know how they would even do a house with both of them combined.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time they've taken a property and really just kind of went all over the place with it if they did.
It's true.
So I guess we'll see. I do think it is worth mentioning. Um, now that it's been brought up, our friends over at the RIP tour did hint that this could be just Ghostbusters 1 and 2. And not just like
And
a, hey, this would make sense. Like, they're saying they have heard potentially just Ghostbusters 1 and 2, which I think probably works better for a house, to be honest. I think out of any Ghostbusters film, Ghostbusters 2 probably gives you the most house potential.
mm-hmm. I mean, I completely agree. I really think the best way, and this was my thought of like how they were gonna do our Ghostbusters house, though that didn't end up happening. We just did the original, but I really think the best way to get best of both worlds of the iconicness of Ghostbusters and the scariness of Ghostbusters 2 is to take elements of Ghostbusters 2 and smash them into iconic moments of Ghostbusters 1 or iconic locations. Because those locations are going to be there no matter what. It's just New York. You can have, you go through the hotel, but then there's Ghostbusters pink slime there, and there happens to be different types of ghosts and stuff like that. So you're getting, the nostalgia of Ghostbusters, but you're also getting the, I think, really creativeness and ways they can elevate it. Elevate the scares of Ghostbusters too. I really think, in my opinion, if you are going to make a Ghostbusters house and really sell it as a haunted house and not just a walk through Ghostbusters experience, that is how you do it.
Agreed. Fully agreed.
So if that was, if we're leaning in that direction, I know you said you probably prefer that than Frozen Empire. Do you think that would like rise it on your like hype rating at all? Like enough to be like maybe I'm okay with this property
I,
possibly
I think
coming back?
comparatively, it rises in hype. I don't think it actually would get it up the actual rankings that will exist at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of like, yeah, a tad more excitement, maybe. But overall, it's probably going to be still right near the bottom of my hype list, if not the bottom.
Yeah, that's fair. We got burned once. But should we move on? We'll move on to the next one actually. Because these are going to be two rumors that I'm gonna talk about once, and then we'll sort of split them up in the conversation. But along with Ghostbusters, these next two are the most solid rumors that Legacy has heard. That's what he said. And basically, the other rumors are Universal Monsters Dracula. It's not currently known if it's like Dracula would just be featured or if he's the main monster, if it's Dracula's location. That hasn't been confirmed. It's just, or it hasn't been like rumored. It's just like the rumor is Universal Monsters Dracula. And Nightmare on Elm Street are the other two rumors he's heard. So let's start with Dracula, right? Um, how do you feel about that, Duff? Do you think that's gonna happen? Do you think you want it to happen?
I don't know. It wouldn't be what I'd lean towards, whether it's what they do or what I want. Um, Obviously, who am I to say? But um, I don't know. More importantly, what I think about it, since I don't know for a fact what they're doing. What I think is that we've seen plenty of Dracula, um, and while we've not had a actual Dracula house, it's he has been featured like as a main character on multiple occasions at this point, and even
Mhm.
when he's not featured, The Brides of Dracula. So you really just can't escape the Dracula vibe until this year. Um, so I don't know. I don't want that. To be completely honest with you, I'd rather see them focus on someone who hasn't had like a full feature and maybe just more like was in the mashup HHN 29 house or 2018 for Hollywood, um, rather than just like, hey, this guy you see basically every year, it's his house now. It's like, yeah, but like to be honest, 28 almost kind of felt like a Dracula house just by mood and setting, and of course
Hmm.
that changed certain scenes, but like he was on the forefront of marketing. He was featured. I don't know. I'd have to think. Is it more than anyone else, or tied the most of anyone else throughout the house? He was just very prominent, so it almost kind of felt like his and maybe Frankenstein's house, and then kind of everyone else lumped in. Obviously, played a huge role in Legends Collide, even though he didn't pop up as much as some people wanted him to. I was happy he didn't actually make an appearance as much as expected.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I don't need that right now. Maybe visit that in a few years after we haven't had him, but for right now, no, I'm good. I'll pass.
No, I completely agree. Like, I haven't personally seen a full Dracula house yet. Like, completely just Dracula, or like he is the main character. You have. You've seen plenty, right? Like in the past, even before it was just this new version of Universal Monsters.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it hasn't been plenty, but it has existed in the past. Yes.
So like I I wouldn't like be that upset if it was just Dracula because I haven't seen a full Dracula, but like you said, he's been so prominent or at least had a presence in almost every monster's house that we've had that I'd rather not. I think there's so many more monsters that you can pull from or create new stories with, or just do something interesting. Like, even though Universal Monsters Unmasked wasn't my favorite Universal Monster house, I loved that they went and just played with all these different monsters that you don't usually see, like Invisible Man. Like, he was in there, that they just took a monster and like, let's throw him in there, let's see how it works. Or Jekyll and Hyde was a big surprise, and that was really fun having him in there. I really like the diverse monsters they chose, that aren't usually the headliners. And
Yeah.
it would feel so weird to just go right back to, here's the main monster, and like in his main house, after we just had a mashup of underused monsters.
Yeah, I mean, and it just in general, you're missing so many people who have had little to no representation as far as Universal monsters go. Um, that yeah, it would just feel unnecessary to have him again. And I know, obviously, it's because he's, you could argue, the face of the Universal monsters, right? Is he the biggest character? Probably, probably him or Frankenstein's monster. It's one of them, right? Um, but no, I don't think Universal Monsters, whatever they announce the property as, is what is drawing people. It's not getting people to the event. And I know it's more than that. It's about flow and getting people into the house, and a lot goes into that. But people are going to show up to the Monsters house anyways, right? It's a staple at this point for the past 5 years, or 4 events, if you will. Um, that it's just one of those things that it's going to be a big draw at the event, and people are going to go. So I don't think you need to put one of the forefront characters um, every single year, which they didn't this year. And guess what? I mean, the house still seemed to draw pretty well.
Oh yeah, it got really nice waits, like long waits some nights. Like, there were a lot of times you couldn't just walk in. There'd be like, 50, 60, sometimes even longer waits for that.
Hmm.
For monsters that, like, are underutilized, are ones that are not, I mean, they're known, but they're not as known as the others, and it didn't really affect the lines.
No, and I mean, look how people like crave Creature every single year, like since 29. People have been like, Creature, Creature, Creature. That's a huge character
Mhm.
they haven't delved into, and there's others just like him. So
Yeah, I completely agree. But let's move on to the second part of these rumors. The second rumor that Legacy mentioned, and that is Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm just going to just to give a little confirmation about like the rumor itself. The current rumor is not like the original film or a mashup or whatever. The rumor is Nightmare on Elm Street. We do not know about what this rumor is like actually like what the what Nightmare on Elm Street it would be if this rumor is true. It's just Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's for us to decide, wish, want. That's the question I asked on Twitter. I'm like, what version of this property or what movie or how would you want them to take this? Because currently, as the rumor stands, according to at least what Legacy said, or he hasn't said at least, we do not know what Nightmare on Elm Street it would be. But yeah, how do you feel about this?
I mean, I would personally want a mashup as far as Freddy goes. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the best way to handle it. I think he's had so many different iconic kills. Um, but if you look at most of the films, I don't want to say they lull, but like I think it would be harder for most of those films to try to get an entire house out of. Um, and I think it would really just work well to kind of mash up the best of Freddy. And I think you'd get so many different kinds of Freddy. He kind of evolved and got extremely goofy at some points, and I think it would be fun to go throughout that entire history of him.
I mean, I agree with that. I think that would be a really fun concept. I do wonder though, because I don't know anything about this. I think you know a little bit more than me, but I'm not particularly sure. So if I put you on the spot, I'm sorry. Um, with rights and like with Nightmare on Elm Street, what's going on with that? Because I know Jason is like untouchable right now,
Mhm.
probably. But I know Nightmare on Elm Street, the rights are a little interesting, like with regards to how the series is going.
Yeah, so it's nowhere near Jason level or Friday the 13th level as a whole. Um, but it still has a kind of wacky history. It seems that right now, the one thing we do know is the original film is owned by the Wes Craven estate. Um, and it seems like he, or not he, but his estate attempted to basically get ownership of the entirety and all the sequels as a whole from New Line Cinema. We don't know what came of that. The Wes Craven estate could own every single film at this moment, but we are not sure. But at the very least,
Got it. So
the Craven estate does have the rights to the first film and Freddy as a character.
okay, well that's perfect. So there is a world where maybe Universal's only allowed to touch the first one, depending on how everything turned out.
Yes. It's also interesting. If you weren't aware, New Line Cinema, I don't know the ownership level, if it's a complete subsidiary or if there's a specific ownership amount, but is under Warner Brothers in some fashion. So,
Oh.
depending how under they are, we know that can be an issue with Universal and Warner Brothers at the moment. So, um, keep that in mind if New Line Cinema still does have the rights to all the sequels.
Yeah. So in terms of like what I'd want out of this, I would like the focus to be like I'm totally okay with the mashup because I think like you said, maybe the first film, like maybe there's not enough material to throw into it like a whole house. But the first film does have like, I mean, most of the things people remember Freddy for, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
most of the main horror things. So I think it'd be really cool if you took the original film, right, and like that was your base, but then you threw in like a lot of the other stuff too, like to pad
Mm,
it out a little bit to make it
yeah.
not super short, but you're still mainly focusing on when Freddy was scary and not until he became a little funnier later on. I
Mhm.
would like if the house leaned towards this. I do like funny Freddy, I really do, but I wouldn't mind if they leaned towards the more scary Freddy with like some fun one-liners compared to when Freddy just went full on funny later on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll also just take a Dream Warriors house. I know, kind of with
Yeah.
Dreamwalkers, we had kind of an original take on the premise almost. But I would like if I got to take any film, I guess the first, yes, because of what it'll give you, right? The iconic
Hmm.
Freddy. But Dream Warriors is the best film in the franchise, and I think it has a lot of places you can go, and a lot of sets to give you, a lot of decent kills, good story. That's not going to happen. That they are not just going to do a Dream Warriors house. That's just a like if we're really asking what I would want, I think it would be that. Even though I sort of I didn't see it, but I saw the premise of it in an original form already.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people agree with you in terms of like that one being the best. I am a failure and have not watched that yet, and I really need
Oh,
to
you would love it. You would
because
love that film.
I've watched like a lot of the kills separately, and they all look really cool. So I feel like that would definitely be up my alley.
Yes,
Um,
1,000,000%. Shall we move
well,
on to
yeah,
the next one at this point?
yeah. You can take the next two because the next one's really short.
All right. This is basically adding on to what we just talked about. But that Ghostbusters, Dracula, and Nightmare on Elm Street have been steady rumors for about 2 months at this point. Um,
According to Legacy.
according to Legacy, yeah, we're still talking about Legacy here. Uh, yeah, it's that kind of makes you feel almost more confident in them coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh yeah,
hey,
when rumors are more steady, it definitely helps. Helps things for
I
sure.
still will say we are at the point, kind of the end point almost, but the point to where things that were planned can still change. It's not too late. And it happens every year that something will change this late or later in the game. So just because it's been talked about, and it could be talked about and just be off. Again, wires get crossed, and sometimes you expect one property, but it was really another property the whole time. So, obviously don't expect these to come because of that. But it kind of adds more weight to the rumor when they've kind of just been around the whole time. Because a lot of times you'll see a big rumor pop up, last few weeks, maybe a month, and then get shot down. Um, Not these, not yet at least.
No, yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, but yeah, there are things that can pop up like this, or especially like if we're comparing it to last year, right? The last year was a weird situations, but things that were popped up and they kept getting talked about, like Universal Monsters Phantom versus Dracula was something that was brought up in spec season and rumor season for a while, and then it just was like, actually, there's no Dracula, there's this and that, and it felt
Hmm.
like it kept adding throughout the season. I think even in 31, there was like a point where people kept like going back and forth between what monster it was going to be, and then it was like, no, this is the main monster, no, this is the main monster,
Yeah. Yeah.
so like this is an example of like how things that are steady at one point can just start jumping around and changing like crazy as the season goes on.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that, but interesting that those have been pretty steady. And the last of our insider news here is that various insiders seem to be teasing what you could think at first glance would be an excellent rumor. And that's an IP comedy duo show, which, of course, mine goes to Bill and Ted. Has to. And when we're talking HHN, right? What else would you think?
Hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is, especially if it's kind of more. They aren't saying it, right? Like, you think that would
Yeah,
just be flat out said at this point. It's an established HHN thing. It's not like it's some new thing to kind of tease around, but
hmm.
so it's interesting.
Yeah, and actually, to jump on your point, I'm pretty sure I do not have like the source because I could not find it. Because it's deep and inside Universal, but I'm pretty sure, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. That Legacy like just said no Bill and Ted on Inside Universal and referring to like a comedy duo show. I'm pretty sure he said no Bill and Ted, and if he didn't, then I know for sure that on the discords where this rumor like originated and then spread to Inside Universal, and the reason is various insiders because it just kind of blossomed and went crazy around the community that it's kind of hard to keep track. But in terms of like this rumor popping up, I think Legacy commented on it and basically went like, oh, fans aren't gonna like that, in terms of like this particular thing. And if fans aren't gonna like that, it's not gonna be Bill and Ted, at least according to the rumor.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it would sound like he means, right? Because obviously people would be excited for Bill and Ted. Not everybody, but there would be a lot of people excited.
Oh yeah, like it would, the majority of people that are in the agent community would definitely be excited for it. It would not be an unpopular thing at the end of the day. So like, what IP comedy, like, I don't, first of all, are you, would you be interested in another, I guess another version of Bill and Ted, like another uh comedy duo show at the event?
I mean, yeah, in general, I think I say it all the time. We need a comedic relief aspect to the event, and I think a show's the best way to do that. I don't necessarily think it has to be a duo, like you're directly trying to replicate Bill and Ted, but I mean, we talked about, especially going into 30, like Beetlejuice, right? Something like that. It could be, it doesn't have to be full Bill and Ted format. Um, I think just kind of find the best fit to host a show like that rather than trying to replicate the thing that worked before.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I will say, if this rumor is true, regardless of what the comedy duo is and what, or what IP it is or whatever, being able to see comedy at Halloween Horror Nights is something I've never experienced before in terms of a show, like a comedy show. I've only had, dance shows or the Lagoon show, and being able to see a comedy show is like on the top of, like, one of the top of my like agent wish list of like things I want to see, like a bucket list, because I really think a comedy show at this event that has you, sort of unedged the entire time. Everything's sort of blasting in your ears. It's very intense. The houses are intense. Sometimes the scare zones can get a little scary. Having that breather in a like, or just a comedy show, being able to laugh, being able to sort of let go in between the intensity of Halloween Horror Nights, I think is something that is like desperately needed, in my opinion, to I don't know, to improve the event, at least for me. And I know a lot of other people feel the same way. So regardless of what it is, I would be very excited if this ends up being true.
Oh, I would be stoked. 100%.
Hell yeah. uh Duff, are you ready to move on to Universal Studios Hollywood?
Are there Murdy tweets?
There is one we'll
All
get to.
right. Yeah, let's
We'll
do it.
end with that. So this one's really fun, and at first you're gonna be like, "Why are we talking about this?" But you'll understand a little bit. So as we've talked about before, the 60th anniversary of the Universal Studios trams, uh, their celebration is almost starting. Right, it's ramping up. They made an announcement about it. I don't remember exactly when it starts, but I know it's coming up soon, and we know this because some of the trams on the tram tour have been transformed into the glamour trams. From back in the day, they have a nice new decals on them, and they look very very fresh, and I don't know, they look really cool. Have you seen the pictures of them, Duff?
Yeah, no, they look great. They look just clean. It's a very clean look, and not so. Honestly, the whole aesthetic for that right now is so like early to mid 2000s esque. I don't like it. So I'm happy. I'm happy they got this little glow up.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is something that I cannot wait to experience when when we get back out there for Hollywood. But the reason I bring this up on an HHN podcast, is that one of our good friends that we've talked about in the show before, Kevin, um, actually had a theory about like HHN in regard to these glamour trams that I thought was really cool, like cool enough that I'm like, I'm gonna share it on the podcast. I think this is really fun. And basically, according to Hollywood Harry's HHN backstory, meaning it's just a fake backstory written for Halloween Horror Nights. He was the mascot of Universal Studios back in the glamour tram days, or either pictures you can find of him just like on the glamour tram, like waving, giving like hello, and with these trams coming back, they are here now. We have them. People can ride the glamour trams now, which is really cool. Could that mean there is a chance, or even a maybe bigger chance than normal, that he returns this year as the Terror Tram host to sort of reclaim when he was the mascot of HHN on the glamour trams, and stuff like that?
I mean, I won't put money on it, but I definitely think there is weight to that theory. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's a really fun theory. Regardless if it ends up, happening or not, I think it'd be really cool, to have him be like, yeah, we're finally back to when I was the mascot, and you do something fun with that. I really enjoy the Hollywood Harry character. When I saw him in 2022, I thought he was a really fun character, and I love to see him back. Maybe not this soon, but I'd love to see him back. And this would be a very fun way to use what's going on with the trams and tying it to HHN. It's a I don't know. I think that is I do like when what happens with the park or what's going on in the park happens to end up meshing perfectly with the event itself.
Hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
think that could be really fun.
and I think anything adding originality to the event in Hollywood, I appreciate because it just leans throughout the event as a whole. Everything about it leans so IP heavy that anything they add that's original, I appreciate.
I completely agree. 100%. Uh And yeah, we have one more piece of news that was taken by Kevin. Do you want to take this stuff?
Sure, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
So it seems, according to photos that we have seen, that HHN Hollywood construction has begun on the T pad and the mummy queue.
Woo!
It's very light construction, to say the least, but it is kind of the prep work for those tents going up.
Yeah, we have like construction marks on the floor that can clearly be seen. The mummy queue has been uh, you can just tell it's getting set up for HHN. They're taking some stuff away. It's very like, all right, here's our blank canvas to make a Halloween Horror Nights house, and the T pad has the same marks on it as well, which is interesting because I think we were talking about just was it today was it technically this episode about Murdy saying that T pad was he was like, oh yeah, we should be using it. He didn't say like he was,
Yeah,
like
yeah. No, that was
perfect.
in the episode that they're listening to. Oh, spoiler alert, probably.
Oh, this is wild. But yeah, so I mean, there we go. That probably means it's probably definitely being used, unless the same construction marks are just for something completely different, which I doubt. At when they're both like made at the same time in two Asian locations. So yeah, this is exciting, and I'm sure in later episodes, we are going to have more updates from you, from our friend Kevin, getting pictures and of what's going on and
All
what's
that
happening.
construction info.
Yeah, all that construction info.
All right, I believe that is all we have for this news update.
Actually, I got one more thing because
Oh,
you
oh,
reminded me. I
oh,
didn't put it on, but I'm like,
oh.
I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna do it now.
All right,
um.
I'm seated. Actually, I'm standing. But go ahead.
So, um, John Murdy made a tweet, right? And with the tweet's contents, I don't even need to read it because they do not matter. It's just a response about Coraline to someone, not about like just a fun response. It has nothing to do with HHN or anything. It's just a fun little Twitter response to somebody. But the funny part in this tweet is that he uses the word weekend, just like, saw something on the weekend or something like that, or watched it this weekend, whatever that sentence was, but he used the wrong weekends. He used it like he spelled it like the singer The Weekend, capital W, just weekend, like that.
Like Abel Tesfaye, the
Like
weekend, the artist,
the
the one
weekend.
who has had a house at HHN before.
Exactly. And while I don't think any of us think this means anything, I think this is really funny because I think that this random response like ended up spreading on some discords. People going like, "Why did he just say the weekend?" you know,
Let's be
when it's
honest.
just like, "I'll."
John Murdy hasn't changed his phone since 2000, probably 8. So his autocorrect is probably all the same. It has not changed since the past couple of years. So you're right. Probably means nothing. But what if it does? What if he's talking
Imagine.
about the weekend all the time?
Oh, it's Murdy's been hiding things right under our nose.
Oh, Murdy, you tricky fella. But yeah, no, more just kind of a funny little thing that definitely got a giggle out of everyone here when we saw it.
Absolutely.
All
And
right,
yeah, that is all the
all
news.
right, cool. Well, enjoy the rest of the episode, I guess. All right, shall we move on to the main segment, which is a very fitting main segment from us this week, to be fair. Last week we talked about how it seems like there's a good chance we're going to lose one, if not both, of the parade warehouses this year for HHN houses, if not moving forward completely. So we figured, why not rank our top 10 parade warehouses of all time that we've experienced?
Yeah, reminisce a little bit. If these are
Exactly.
gone, we're not saying it's 100% official, but if these are gone, let's go back and, look at some of these that we got to experience and uh, reminisce and talk about them. I had a fun time going back and look at some of these, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a few on there. I'm like, oh, man, I forgot how much I liked that.
It got hard for me because like Jonathan has only experienced 10, right? Total.
Hmm.
And I've only been through 11. So like I got to take one out of my top 10, but I was going through and I was like, oh, the farther away I get from some of these, we always say those parade buildings have good bones, but like they really have good bones.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. There's some absolute great ones in here. All right. Well, who
Absolutely.
who wants to get us kicked off? We might as well go straight into it. Concept simple. Everyone gets it. Okay, I'll start us off.
Yeah.
So at number 10, I'm going to start in the original Parade Warehouse, B79. And that's going to be HHN 22's Universal's House of Horrors, which, if
Ooh.
you aren't aware, was a Universal Monsters house.
hmm
It was in black and white. It was a really fun, unique concept. It was before this modern wave of monsters we've got. So it was much more along the lines of just strictly classic monsters and their looks and their aesthetics and the vibe, to be honest. And it was black and white. It wanted you to feel like you were in that world. And definitely wasn't a perfect house, but it was a very
No.
strong house. And at the time, it was really cool to see Universal Monsters. It was not as common by any means. So I thought it had fun effects. It really played with like the lightning, kind of lighting things up a lot. That was a huge factor. The designs and the way they utilized the black and white was a lot of fun. And to be honest, it had pretty fucking good scares. So, I mean, it did kind of all three levels I'm looking for at a pretty high level. So, while maybe it's only like an 8 out of 10 house overall, it's still good enough for my top 10. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, I have to piggyback. My number 10 is also
No
Universal
way.
House of Horrors. Yes,
I
it
hate you
is.
both.
Um, and yeah, we did not plan this.
No,
It
not at all.
literally is.
We've not talked to each other
Um,
about this.
my number 10 is, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I would say it was definitely a flawed house, but there is some backstory to this. Like, this was actually a last minute replacement house. If I don't know if you remember, there was
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
there
that.
was going to be a chupacabra house in where Transformers was going to be, that
Oh.
got scrapped like very last minute. And no, like literally no lie, like the rumor is that literally the paint was still drying on the opening night
Hmm.
of this house, so it was a last minute replacement. So the the concept of kind of the black and white and like lit by strobes was really, it was like a fun concept, but it was also a necessity concept, because the the actual decor of this house was pretty bare bones, to be honest. Like, there wasn't a ton of like extra stuff to it, but it was a really fun concept. And for a year that kind of overall wasn't very good, this was one of the top 3 or 4 standouts of the year. And I agree with everything else
Absolutely.
you said. It was fun. It was, it was like the strobe effect is always, this was a good use of that strobe effect. It was a fun house for sure.
Oh my god. This is a house that like I remember there's like a really shitty walkthrough on YouTube. And I'll like watch it here and there and you can't see anything in here. But this is a house that I remember like watching people talk about online, and the black and white concept is something I just love and I really wanted to see at that time.
Hmm.
So I love that y'all put it on this list.
Yeah, I also have to jump in on that because I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Which video?
Hmm.
When you could see little things, kind of, but not really, just because of the way the lighting is and the colors. It just you can't see anything. But the fact that they had a monster's house, even if it was out of necessity, even if it was just out of like it's what we had to
Yeah,
do. The fact that they did have a black and white Universal Monsters house is just really cool, regardless of why it happened. I think that in and of itself is like a house. I like that reason alone is a house I would love to go back in time and see because it
yeah.
sounds like it was really cool and inventive.
Mhm.
It's a proof of concept that last minute replacements don't have to be like Hellblock. That
It's
the
true.
last minute they if as long as you get creative with it, you can you can have fun with it, and you can um, have a fun house.
Well, speaking of a fun house,
Oh.
Oh
Uh,
my.
oh,
I just want to get out of the way. So, my number 10 is also in the old parade building. It's Beetlejuice. You guys have heard me talk about this forever. I'm gonna justify why I didn't put Ash vs. Evil Dead on my list because that's the one I left out.
mm,
Beetlejuice just means more to me. I think that they were both kind of shitty in their own ways, but I had a good time.
Fair.
That makes sense.
That's it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nothing more.
um, my number 10 is ev- all these houses I have on this list, like I don't really well nine of the 10 houses on this list I don't really dislike. I think have like a lot of really positive qualities, and in the end I look fondly of them. This is the only one in the parade buildings because like Jess and I, we only have like about 10. You have one more than I do, so like the 10 is going to be the bottom and not like top 10. um but this is the only one that I'm like I look back on and go like I have very strong feelings about this one, and that is the Haunting of Hill House in the new parade building. This one did not hit the property the way I wanted it to. It had a lot of things that I really didn't like the direction they went in with it. I remember having such high hopes in spec season and getting very let down. And I also remember there was one night where at the end of like it was like the last 10 no last like 5 or 6 minutes of the event, they kept letting us go in again, like with no wait. They let us kept going in over and over and over again. And I was the whole season I was like, there's something wrong with me. It can't really it can't really be that I don't want to say bad. Bad is not the right word, but that disappointing, right? And then when I did it 4 times in a row, I walked out and I said, I don't need to do this house anymore. Like I think I finally settled with myself that this is just a huge disappointment to me, and like that's it. The positives can't outweigh the negatives for me. So yeah, Haunting a Hill House at 10. A lot of it's just because of the hype I had, and it let me down.
This is a hilarious top 10 because usually top 10 is like a positive, you
Not
know?
for us.
And instead it's Jonathan's like, here's my number 10. I fucking hate it.
Pretty much.
Which, hey, you know I'm fully with you. I did not enjoy The Haunting of Hill House, and I hated it even more on the other coast. So
Oh god.
uh, I'm happy it does not have to be in my top 10 because that'd be painful to have to put it in a top 10 list.
Just rub it in, why don't you, motherfuckers?
Okay, I will.
Someone bring us up, please.
I guess I'm going. So number 9, I'm gonna hop back to HHN 19 and to what I think is one of the best icon houses of all time, and that's Silver Screams,
Ooh.
which would be the Usher's house.
I
Mike,
hate you.
yeah, I know you probably have this higher. Um,
I didn't go
oh,
to
you didn't
this
go.
year.
That's fucking right.
No,
You went to the next year. Oh,
the
damn.
next year, and I didn't go to the parade building house. So
You would
I only
have it
do a
higher.
couple. Yeah, I did. I did not do a hallowed pass. Full disclosure. So
Gotcha.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think it was just a lot of fun. I think as far as an icon house goes, it executed the concept of the icon. Again, in this case, that's the usher. It fit the not just him, but the entire event, which was ripped from the silver screen. It used some interesting properties in the house. A big one for me was having the original The Thing. It had Army of Darkness. It had The Strangers. It had the Phantom of the Opera, the original 1925. It just had some very interesting choices, and I think executed very well. Um, and that's just kind of like a fun aesthetic, right? Like it's very much walking into the movies, and that's not just that year, but that's Universal, especially at that time. So, um, walking into the Universal Palace Theater was just kind of a special thing. I think it is a flawed house, and I think honestly, House of Horrors might be the technically better house, but because of how fun this was and the things I got to see, I edge it just by a bit.
I'm jealous. I really wanted to see this house. I'm gonna say that about all of yours.
I
Except
mean,
for
I have several you've been to.
I know, but like
In
you're
fact, like,
obviously putting out
yeah,
some bangers right now.
no,
Like
of course, of course.
and there's little old me and Jonathan with our sad lists.
Yeah.
Well, I can go because my number 9 has already been talked about, but I definitely liked it a lot more than Jonathan.
Oh,
Is The Haunting of Hill House. I so this year I only got to go a couple of times. So I did not do it very often, but I did get to do like a behind the screams tour of it, and get to experience it a couple of times. I think for me there's some things that I did like about it. I do think it's a flawed house, but I mean not every house on this list is going to be perfect. I really like the facade. I like that they did their best for like kind of like I think looking back, I think we're realizing that maybe Haunting of a Hill House just wasn't necessarily probably a good property to do. It covers some very heavy themes. It's not necessarily your traditional horror. But I again it's something that they tried to do, and what didn't perfect it didn't work perfectly, but there was enough here that like with the special effects and some of the things that they did try to do, that I did enjoy it. So it's number 9 for me.
I appreciate that you liked it so much because I know, like, generally the community consensus was that they did like this house.
Yeah,
Um, so
it
I
was like
am.
it was like a middle of the road for me this year. It was like 6 or 7. I'm not saying I loved it, but it was good.
No, no, that's awesome. I think that it's awesome that, especially the way we interpret art, that some people can like absolutely be on the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, no, like, that I don't want ever want to go in this house again. And some people could be like, hey, it's on top 10. I liked it a lot. I think that's really cool, and one of the reasons why this event is so much fun because everyone has, like, usually a lot of people have completely varying opinions on houses. Besides like maybe like a couple of key ones on the top, but yeah.
Well, speaking of people who want to shit on Haunting of Hill House, that's also my number 9.
There we go.
And I'm not as positive about it as my I'm not as negative as Jonathan. But we've talked about this. Jonathan and I went off about this together, I'm pretty sure. This is a property that I love. I love Haunting of the Hill House. It came to me at a very important time in my life and helped me through like very similar things that some of it covers. So it's very important, and I was very excited to see it, and I was very disappointed. And maybe like what you said, Mike, it was just too dark to cover. But I also agree with Jonathan in that everything I wanted to see, they kind of either didn't do it or didn't do it the right way, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So I just, yeah, I don't ever want to think about this house again. I just couldn't put it below Beetlejuice. I just, that one disappointed me more. So my 9 and 10 they're very negative, but after this I feel like I get a lot more positive because the rest of these 8 were all very high in my like final rankings of each year. So
Well,
no more
luckily for you,
negativity.
we don't have to think about it again today because it's definitely not on my list.
Oh, thank
So
God.
there you go. We're done.
Goodbye, Hill House. Get out of here.
All
All
right, should I
right.
move on? Oh, you
Oh,
still got to go. My
I still
bad.
got my number 9.
It's always you. I always do it to you specifically. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. Makes me feel so good inside. um, my number 9 is, I'm actually not really negative at all. The number 10 was the only one that I have like super negative feelings on. The rest of them I just think are, until we get like near the top, are just somewhat flawed, but are, like still good. This one was number 9, not because I think it was necessarily worse than the one above it, but because I do not remember it at all. And that's Trick or Treat, from 28. For full reference, for all the 28 houses on this list, which will just be one more, I only went through them once. So like I did not have a lot of time to experience them at all. I went to the event one day this year. And for this specific property, I did not watch the movie before going to the house. So I was walking
Boo.
yeah, so I was walking through going, I don't know what the fuck is going on at all. Like I was very confused, and I left the house going like, well, it looked pretty and there were some interesting scares, and I'm going to forget about it. And that has stayed true to this day cuz I've forgotten about it. It's still, I think, a pretty good house, and I'm sure, like people who love the movie, like, you just like had a good time with it, but I didn't watch the movie and I still haven't. So, number 9.
To be fair, I love the movie. Trick or Treat is a up there movie for me, and I think you probably liked this house more than I did. So
Really?
I don't hate it. I do not have the greatest thoughts on it though.
That makes sense.
I think it just we don't need to go into that. It's fine. It's not on my top 10.
I'm being quiet until it comes up on mine. So
Okay. I'll get a chance again if I want to.
correct.
All right, now I will hop into my number 8. And this is an interesting one because I think most people would put it nowhere near their top 10. But I have a very special place in my heart for this house. I thought it gave me a location I really wanted to see and an aesthetic I wanted to vibe with. And I'm staying in B79 for HHN 24's Roanoke Cannibal Colony. I
Oh,
Ooh.
think, yeah, it's kind of like smaller. I don't even want to say smaller scale, but a slightly smaller scale, like what we got at a Blood Moon, but a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more gory. Story wasn't as good, but good sets, good scares. And it just feels like something we really haven't seen otherwise until like Blood Moon for the most part. So um, for me, it's really just kind of something I wanted to see, and I got to see it, and I think they executed it pretty well. I know a lot of people do not agree with that. A lot of people had this at like the bottom of their list or near the bottom of their list for 24. Um, but it's a house that I really enjoyed for sure, and I would happily take a sequel. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I'd take it.
So you said like it had like more aggressive scares than Blood Moon, like more intense ones.
Yes, for sure.
Ooh, I like that.
You're gonna lose out on some story. Uh, the sets were good, but not quite as good. But definitely more scares for sure.
I will save my thoughts for when it comes into my list.
Ooh.
oh,
It's coming up soon, but not immediately enough to piggyback. So
Okay,
I will
gotcha.
save my thoughts. But I can go for my number 8 of being The Last of Us.
Ooh.
Um, I do think that this one was lower for the year. That being said, I really did enjoy this house, and I think honestly, the further I get away from the event, time is being kind to it. Like I think back like fondly of this house. I think a lot of the stuff that they did really well. I don't think it's perfect. I think that there were some pacing problems. I think that's the main thing for me that I had issues with. But for the most part, I think they did a lot of stuff really really well. Some great sets, some great makeup, some cool special effects. The storytelling is done well. I enjoyed this house, and I am sad that not going to experience it again. And I kind of wish I had prioritized this one a little bit more than I did last year. I wish I had done it a couple more times.
It was just so hard because it was one of the longest waits, like every night, and also getting there was like took so long because you had to walk all the way to the back, and
It
sometimes
is,
the wait
yeah,
time was wrong, and yeah, it was that getting there was an interesting experience. The way the queue was laid out and stuff.
yeah.
definitely.
And I guess I can spoil now that this will not be on my list, so I'll talk about it. Um, it's not a house I was negative on, but like you, Mike, I think since we've got further away from the event, I do think a bit more fondly of it. I think back more to like my first run, which I was like, oh shit, this is cool, and not so much the part where it kind of got boring running it multiple times. Um, so I definitely, I think it was good still. It was a good house, good scale, a bit stagnant, not enough action going on for the most
Yeah.
part. But it's something that probably would end up at like 12 or 13, like not too far off my top 10.
It had that I don't want to say it, but it had that like um spirits of the coven pacing where it you thought it was going to
Mm,
build to something and it
hmm
just didn't ever quite get to like to that
Until like
highs
literally the
that you
finale itself.
yeah,
It
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
literally waited the entire house to go, ah, here's something cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's like, well, okay, you could have done that earlier too.
And I
That would
think
have been
it's like
nice.
that folky music. It's just it's again they tried something and it's
hmm
just it. But again, there's a lot of good things going on with it too.
So, I mentioned I was going to talk about Trick or Treat, and I guess it's time. So, it's my number 8, and I don't want to say I think of it much more fondly than you do, Jonathan. The Zone is where it's at, and that's like the general consensus on like House versus the Zone. The House was good. I thought that it told the anthology the best way it could, jumping around, but kind of giving us that like little we had the little nameplate or the title sequence as we went into each kind of part.
Mm.
Um, but overall, like it just didn't give me the same vibes that the movie gives me and that the Zone gave me, and that's really where it fell flat for me. We saw all the characters, we got some iconic scenes, but the reason I kind of put this above like Hill House or Beetlejuice was the sets alone. They put the whole neighborhood there. We had multiple house facades. Like it was to me as impactful as seeing like the Myers house in Halloween a couple years was in the middle of the house. So for me, this was like me going, holy shit, they can do like some really cool house or like house sets here because this was only my second year. So I kind of think of it more fondly in that. And then like my FaceTime with Sam, but as someone who has a trick or treat tattoo, it did not hit the mark in the way that I wanted it to, like the Zone did.
That makes sense. I will say, think like the what the things I do remember about Trick or Treat was exactly what you're talking about. Those like neighborhood like sets,
Mm,
like those were stunning, absolutely stunning. And as someone who like didn't really do it that was my first year going to HHN. It's cool learning how HHN can do outside scenes inside of buildings. Like
mm-hmm.
that was what, like besides Poltergeist's like facade, which was very cool, but you could obviously see the top of the sound stage. You knew where you were. Like that seeing having all those humongous buildings like houses surround you on each side was like, am I outside? What the hell? It was like very trippy. So yeah, that house had fantastic sets.
So I guess I'll say a few things while we still have the chance here. Like just very disappointing to be honest, especially when I enjoyed the scare zone so much the year before.
Yeah.
Like they did so much more with the scare zone, in my opinion. And we're talking about like the sets in the scale, and for me, yeah, they were huge. The scale was great, but it felt like just large scale sets in a warehouse. I did not
Mm-hmm.
feel immersed at any point in that house, and that's one of the big issues for me. Is it really just kind of felt like a walkthrough in a warehouse, which is yes what you're doing, obviously, but
Mm.
they always not always in the best houses they immerse you so you don't feel that way,
Yeah,
and I did not get immersed at all in Trick or Treat. It was just sets that were there.
Makes sense.
for sure.
All right. And now my number 8. Actually, Jess, ours are. We're kind of have like the same ones a little bit, just in different order. My number 8 is Beetlejuice.
Okay.
Uh, and I think the only reason I put this above Trick or Treat is because I remember it more. I don't really remember Trick or Treat that much, but I've been to Beetlejuice a lot more, so I have more memories of it. And I do think there are a lot of things that they did get right, and what they do get right, they get really right. I mean, seeing Dante's Inferno, full scale was really cool. Seeing the model was really cool. Seeing the tunnel for the first time was kind of like, whoa, that's cool. You know, seeing this for the first time in a Beetlejuice house was awesome. I thought the way the Barker interacted with you in the front, especially during light, was really fun. I do have a lot of good memories in this house, and a lot of the way the sets looked and the music and everything. Like I do have fond memories of it, but it did have a lot of problems, as we all have gone over multiple times in the past. A lot of unfortunate circumstances, a lot of characters that could not be used, a lot of scenes that were not complete and felt like they weren't done. And for that reason, because of all the potential that this house did have that it didn't deliver, it's going to be at 8, even though I still look back on it and think, I had a fun time in it. It just didn't hit all the marks it needed to.
We will
Cool.
always have Beetlejuice weekend of 2020 at least.
We always will.
I hold it very close to my heart.
Yeah. I believe this is the last time, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the last time that the Beetlejuice will be mentioned, because it is not coming up on my list, and I don't believe it's
Whoa,
coming
hey,
up on
you never
on
know.
yours.
No, I'm
Yeah,
surprised
you know.
Jonathan had it ranked
know.
highest.
Nah, I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
That's fair.
I only got to experience Beetlejuice actually at the weekend, and it was only once. So I really don't have. I've always kind of said I can't really give it a fair opinion because I didn't actually
Oh,
experience
Mike,
it.
you saw the best of it. To be fair,
Mhm.
Yeah,
it got worse.
It was electric that weekend. Everybody was so happy to see it. There was no disappointment.
and I was excited because I almost didn't get to see it. So,
Mhm.
and so, but yeah, I only got to experience that one time, and so I kind of keeping my. I don't have a strong. I can't put it on here because I've always never really been able to have a fair opinion on it. So
Fair.
In a way, I kind of wish the only time I saw it was Beetlejuice weekend, and then I just never saw it in 30. Like I just never walked in, because like we've been saying, like that the high of that weekend was like so powerful and so impactful that like I left that house going like, wow, I love this house. This is one of my favorites, and I kind of wish I kept that naivety and just just kept that feeling and did not walk in it at all in 30. Like I think that would in the end be better for me than seeing it at 30 was.
I think I have Beetlejuice trauma because I'm very worried for this sequel, and I think it stems from Beetlejuice the house.
Oh my
I think
god.
that's fair. You've
I
been
think
through a lot.
Universal owes me like compensation.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on to my number 7. And for the first time on my list, I'm going to go to B108, aka the Second Parade Warehouse, and its first ever house in this location. And that's, of course, HHN28 Seeds of Extinction.
All
And
right.
I
yeah,
mean, hey, just what they did outside alone. I like the effort to give it like an actual built out facade. The bus, the lights, the story told, just scrolling up and down the building. Um, I think that alone is phenomenal use of the space, and I'm sad we never really got that again because it worked so well. And it was a very exciting time, like having a new location and seeing them do it like that. It was like, holy shit, this is going to be the best location ever. Didn't fully end up being that way, but it was a pretty good location. But yeah, the house as a whole, I think, great scale. It really felt like you were entering this mall that has just been taken over by the earth. um, the creature design was so much fun with the plants just trying to kill you. Got a slanted floor, and this house was fucking chock full of Easter eggs. Like every corner, everywhere, there was an Easter egg. My favorite of them being Figment in the house. That was hilarious.
There was
Um,
Figment in the house?
Yeah,
Figment,
in the
a
daycare.
Figment like plush was
I have
in
a
the
picture
house.
I'll send you, Jonathan, from the unmasking tour.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool.
But outside of that, there was like a million HHN references in that house.
Jack and Eddie's sunglasses. Yeah.
The daycare itself was also a reference.
Mhm.
And
Nope.
so much. And I thought the scale was great. It was immersive as fuck. Design was cool. I I mean, it's not the best house ever, but I can't really say much bad about it either.
yeah. Of all the years of kind of my break years that I really look back and mean, man, I really wish I had figured out a way to get there. HHN 28 is that year,
Hmm.
and this is one of the reasons. This and there's Slaughter Cinema and some of the other Stranger Things. But this one in particular, just I know I would have loved it. I think it probably would have been my favorite. Just based on the stuff, the houses I tend to like, I think this probably would have been my favorite.
You would have loved this house for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm holding my thoughts because mine is going to come up later.
All right, well then I will go for my number 7, and that is Roanoke Cannibal Colony.
There it
Um,
is.
yeah, Duff. And in fact, I kind of wish that it lined up because a lot of the stuff that you said, you took the words out of my mouth. Like, I really do think that this is kind of like a spiritual grandma to like something like a blood moon, because just kind of the way this storytelling went, aesthetically it felt quite a bit quite like it, um like the some of the closing scenes. I don't know, it's there was a lot of stuff that was pretty close to what they ended up doing with Blood Moon. The scale isn't quite there, but the goriness, the storytelling, the everything else was there. And I do think this house gets a little bit of a bad rap for a year that was a hit or miss. I think this one hit more than it missed for me.
All right, so my number 7, right?
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay. My number 7, going off my last one with the sets of Trick or Treat, I was literally battling between Trick or Treat and this one for 8 and 7, and I went off sets alone, so I put The Last of Us at number 7 because those sets were way more impressive. But I kind of agree with everything you guys said so far. The farther away we get, the more fond of it I start to think of it, and that's just the recency bias and all that other shit. Absence make the heart grow fonder. But like I really did love this house, and compared to Hollywood's,
Uh,
I'm so sick of this argument, but like we won. Um I really enjoyed it. I talked about it in the wrap up, but I thought that The Last of Us was a really good representation of going through the video game. Yeah, we didn't have a bunch of Joel and Ellie, but as somebody pointed out, if you're playing the game, you only see them sometimes because you're playing as one of them
Yeah.
the entire game. So that argument is kind of invalid at this point. But I thought the sets were impressive. I just kind of wish that the pacing was better. I kind of agree with everything you guys have already said.
I have to talk about that one a little bit later. Not a
Oh,
little
I
bit later.
figured, Jonathan.
Yeah.
There's a while till I get to it. But I'll hit number 7, which I don't know if this is like, I guess, the hottest take I have on this list for number 7 out of the ones I've gone in terms of like technically how low it is in terms of the 10. But it's Universal Monsters Unmasked is my number 7. And honestly, it was gonna be there was a world where it was gonna be 8, but I couldn't put it there, so I kept it at 7. I still think it was a good house and had lots of good things and lots of really incredible sets, and as we talked about in our monsters episode, a fantastic facade, and just lots of great things about it. But overall, I don't think it really hit in all the right areas. I think there were a lot of repetitive segments. I think the way the house was laid out was a little bit strange. I think Invisible Man was kind of useless and just a wasted part of the house, and some characters, because of that, did not get enough time. Hunchback, to do anything real, or to have more scenes or whatever. I still liked it a lot. It just ended up on the lower end of the parade houses for me.
I'm holding my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm holding my thoughts as well.
All right, I'm going to pick it up then. Move on to my number 6, which is going to be HHN 31's The Weekend After Hours Nightmare.
Hey, it got pretty high.
Yeah, that's not too bad, right? It's a house that I like from this point. I actually from 7 is stuff that I think is actually like really well done houses. Um, and The Weekend, as you know, I was excited for this property to come, but I was really concerned about how they'd execute it, and I think they knocked it out of the park. To be honest, they did a lot more with it than I thought they would. I think the sets, the themes, some of the effects used, how they used the music, They actually brought in a lot of scares. The blinding lights hallway. There's just so much about it that was just like fun. Not in the like it's a fun house kind of way because it was dark. And that's what I liked most about it is they really took a music artist and just went pure dark instead of, hey, here's the music, have fun, dance. Um, and I really enjoyed every walkthrough. I thought it was just an impressive house from what they were given to work with.
I'm
Well,
holding my thoughts.
I'm gonna piggyback actually because it's also my number 6.
Ooh.
Whoa.
I know this is the. I know I hinted at it earlier, but this is the one I changed. I actually had Trick or Treat here, and I had The
Oh my.
Weekend at 8, and I like sat down with myself, and I was like, "You're a fucking idiot." Right as we were about to record, and I was like, "You do not think that Trick or Treat is better than The Weekend? Let's be honest with yourself." So I took away my bias on being surrounded by him constantly. I agree with you. This house was really good. I'm a very casual listener of him, trying to not be now that, WWE keeps shoving it down my throat. But it was a great house, and I too enjoyed every single run I did, and it was legitimately scary and dark and kind of what I want the basis of creative IPs to be now. Something like that, where we don't know what it's going to be. We've never done something like that. I feel like they really kind of set the mold in Orlando with this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yes.
be back as well because it is also my number 6.
Oh my
Uh,
Ooh.
god.
yeah, interesting enough. I think you guys covered it pretty well. I do think that it wasn't perfect for me, and I do think that was more just the run throughs because again I didn't get to go a ton up until last year, like a ton on some of these houses, and so some of the ones that they just never quite hit for me, and I think this is one of them. That being said, I really appreciate this house. I think it has a fun story, great scares. It's like you said, Jess, creative IP. This is a perfect example of how you can just take an IP and things that have already been established and then flesh them out like with his music videos and just make them an amazing house. They did a great job. I had a lot of fun in this one.
Yeah, like I said, I got a while till I talk about this one. I got a long time.
Yeah.
And instead, I'll just talk about a house that we've already talked about before on this episode, and that's Seeds of Extinction. Is my number 6. I really liked it. Duff, you kind of just said everything I was planning on saying. I think the sets were really well done. The immersiveness was great. The actual effects they use in terms of like the air blowing and some of the water effects and just making you really feel like this is a real place that has just been overrun by plants was really cool and really inventive and really fun, especially for my first year. I'm really sad I only did this house once because it was my first year, so I only did every house once except Poltergeist and Slaughter. And I wish I got to do it again to really take in all the sets because the first time I went through it was so much, it was kind of overwhelming, and I walked out of it and said like, "Wow, that was beautiful. What happened?" There was so much going on, my mind couldn't process it all. But yeah, this was a very good house, and I heavily, I really enjoyed it.
All right. I think that's back to you, Duff.
All right, let's do it. I guess number 5, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Um,
halfway there.
okay, yeah. So I was actually flipping stuff around. Apologies. But I think I'm gonna stick to number 5 being HHN20's Horror Nights: The Hollowed Past, which I think is without a doubt for me the best anniversary house they've ever done, and it's not even close. I think the whole concept of bringing you into like Horror Nights prop warehouse, like literally, like this is where these fears are, like this is where HHN lives, was fun enough on its own. But I think how they really brought you to these places is what made it great. The use of fear in the lantern as a whole in HHN 20 was probably not the best, but the way they used it in this house was phenomenal. Being able to use it as like a transport from this prop warehouse in into reliving these houses. It's also the best use of the vortex tunnel I've ever seen. Like you literally enter the tunnel and go through the vortex tunnel, which then leads you basically into the action itself, and you're no longer in the warehouse. It had my favorite house ever featured in it, Dead Exposure, and then also things I didn't see, like SS Titanic, Drinks and Foons. Um, it's everything I could have wanted out of an anniversary house, especially an anniversary house where I hadn't been going for a super long time. So there's a lot I had not experienced. Whereas now I go to an anniversary house and it's pretty much everything I've seen, which is cool to see again. But I think one of the fun things about them is seeing things I didn't have the chance to see when they were there. So not only was it a great house, it was a special house for getting to relive things, or not relive things, to live these things that I never thought I would.
I'm really happy this was your first, like one of your first anniversary houses instead of like scary.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh no, this is like the anniversary house, like for someone who like followed online and was like on all the sites and keeping up with it but not going to the event. Like Hollowed Pass is something that like I would give my right arm to go through.
And I remember a lot about what I liked about this house outside of the house itself is in the marketing. You know, they always used to do the web games and trivias and all those things. Is that it was really featured around this house. It was like the warehouse. It was like mini games
Hmm.
in the prop warehouse. Um, that's something I remember spending a lot of time on before, and then getting to go in the house after doing that was so cool.
I'm so jealous. I will forever be jealous of like
Yeah.
there's a couple houses, this is up there.
And it should be. This is one of
Oh, I
those
know.
that's like, yeah, it's especially because anniversary houses are typically whatever. So the fact that they actually like killed one, like they did great. It's just makes it a bit more special.
My favorite
Yeah.
part about this house that I didn't go through was that there is a very clear walkthrough online.
Yeah.
Of like Michael walking through the entire thing, and everything is like super, like the lights are on, you can see everything in the house.
Hmm.
So I was able to not go through it, but be like, hey, I can actually see it, you know, instead of a lot of the ones where that we've talked about before, where it's like it's kind of hard to see with walkthroughs. But this is one of them that I can actually like, you know, have be like, you know, what it was like to experience this as a person who walked through it, you know, like, you know, sort of that. So yeah, and it looked cool from walkthroughs. It looked really, really cool. I love the way they transitioned and tied everything together. It looked like a really fun anniversary house.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm very regretful that I didn't go through this house. I was not an HHN fan when I first actually went to HHN. I was a theme park fan, and I did like a day into night, and we only stayed for a couple hours. And it was really not until the next year that I fell in love with HHN at 21. And so this was one of the ones that I skipped, and I really regret not experiencing this one. But yeah, no, I didn't go through it, so it's not going to be on my list.
I'm so sorry.
To be fair, at the time, it meant nothing to me.
Yeah, that's true.
We can keep the order, and my number 5 is actually from HHN21, and that is The Forsaken. For this year is a very solid year. And this house in particular, I wouldn't say it's the best from that year, but it's a very solid house. I think someone asked recently on like a live that Jonathan and I did if there was ever like a pirate's house ever done. And I believe I misspoke and said Roanoke Cannibal Colony kind of had like a piratey feel. What I really meant is this one. I knew there was somewhere in my memory there was a house that kind of had like
Hmm.
a piratey feel to it, and this one, without doing just like a full pirate house, this was HHN's version of it, and they did a really good job. Really great sets. I would say the main thing that was just kind of is the the glowing eyes. You'll hear a lot about people talking about like, yeah, everything was great, but I just couldn't get into the glowing eyes, and they're right. I think that pulled you out a little bit, but everything else that they do here is a really solid house. I enjoyed The Forsaken, and I think it's one of those I think back a lot and feel like, oh yeah, that year was just so stacked. Like for having, I would have Forsaken near the bottom, but it was still a very solid house.
I am going to bite my tongue for the time being.
Okay.
This is one of those houses again that I'm just going to be forever jealous about. Just that's what I always say. So just get used to it. My number 5. I feel like I'm gonna piss people off with this one. Maybe not. I I know we just ranked the monsters houses, but like a good majority of Jonathan and I's lists are monsters.
Yeah,
So
that is
It's
true.
true.
it got really hard for me. And I haven't had a monsters house yet. So this is my first one. So this is like this one hurts to do. I'm sorry, but I put 2019 Universal
Whoa.
Monsters. And I think it's just because I really love the other two more. And that's the truth. I've talked about it. They're not my favorite monsters houses. We've talked about that as well. That just thank God wasn't in a parade building. Um, but yeah, and it's not that 2019 was bad. This is the blueprint for like this monster renaissance that we're currently living in at HHN Orlando and Hollywood. But like, well, this started in Orlando. I know Hollywood had it in 2018. I don't want to misspeak. Sorry, nobody ripped my head off. But it started in Orlando for us, and I know that like a lot of us, this was like it at 29. There were a lot of really good houses, but I remember running the two parade buildings the most that year. We're not going to talk about the other one yet, but this one was so good. That entrance with like the graveyard with the different statues of them. It was raining. You had a bungee scare. You had Quasi floating up into the fucking bell tower. Like this had everything I wanted from each monster. They had their little vignette. They had their moment. I just looking now where we're at with the monsters houses, I like the direction we've gone in. This is just kind of like expected, which is why it fell farther below some of the other ones.
I think I've learned the key to making this top 10 is just have a graveyard facade.
Yeah. I just like a graveyard.
Well,
I'm biting my tongue on this one.
Yeah, me
Sorry.
too. Me too.
Y'all can hate me. It's okay.
Oh no, I don't. Don't worry.
I know.
I'm gonna hold my tongue on it as well, but I do have a monsters house to talk about for number 5, and it is you. Some of you guys are gonna kill me. It's Legends Collide.
Boo!
Boo, tomato.
Boo this man.
Boo. I wish I had a boo track.
To be fair, I think at least 2 of these you could understand why they're above it. Probably not the other 2, but whatever. Yeah, I thought Legends Collide was a really good house. It is still probably, besides like my first year, because that's kind of an outlier, the scariest house I've done at HHN. For certain runs, I've had runs where I was legitimately running out of the fucking like building, and I've like never done that before. That those last like 2 scares with the Wolfman and Dracula just jumping on me, left right were absolutely terrifying. So yeah, I think it was very scary, and it definitely delivered on scares. My main problem was the story, that it wasn't like it was told, but it wasn't as, I don't know, clear as I wanted it to be. Miles better than Hollywood's, miles better, but it wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. The whole part 1, part 2 thing also, like, that didn't need to be a thing, and it didn't need to connect to this one, but it did, unfortunately, even though it didn't. I don't know. But I liked a lot of the sets. I liked a lot of the effects. The facade was very, very good, and the finale was very good. But I do think overall in 31 I ranked it like near middle of the, like, in like kind of right here. I think I ranked it at 5. So it's kind of fitting it's here at 5 as well. Very good house, just not better in my opinion than the other ones above it.
I am holding my tongue.
Yep.
Yeah, mine's coming. It's coming soon for me, but I'm gonna wait till just we can keep the order.
All right. Well, in that case, I could have piggybacked off of Jess, but I wanted to keep the order. But my number 4 is HHN 29's Universal Monsters.
Wow.
Yeah, which I mean, again, the top 3 is fucking insanely stacked. But yeah, it's a great house, and I think it has dropped up just a bit for me since the time of the event. I always say I like to give it 2 years before I like do all time rankings. Like, so I'm not doing an all time ranking for 29 until 2021, and that's what I'm feeling comfortable. Or I guess after that season in that scenario, because things just change so much, and how I view a house later will evolve. And I still think great house, phenomenal house. But like Jess says, for the most part, I'm not going to have one of them on this list. Um, but I like the direction they're going. Actually, we're not going to have two of them on this list because one of them wasn't even in the Parade Warehouse. But I like the direction they're going with these current monsters houses over just the mashup. I think the way they use the monsters, the scenic, the facade, the effects, they did everything so well. I just like the addition of a story.
Yeah.
And really that's the only thing kind of keeping it just a bit lower.
The story is they're having a monster mash.
Well, yeah, mine's coming quite a bit later, to be honest with you. But I will say that my number four is Universal Monsters Legends Collide. I think
Hey,
we're in the point though that these are all like very good houses.
Mhm.
So this one is just, I think the only reason why I have some others above it is I just of these characters, Unmasked, I think I just really liked the characters more. It's more of a personal preference than the quality of the house, because I think they're all very quality. I think really intense scares, amazing sets, fun storytelling. I definitely am gonna always remember this house, and it's my number four. I just happen to like Unmasked a little bit more, but it's very close.
I think that's fair. I, I could not do that. But I think that's fair. Speaking of Unmasked, that's my number four. Um, so I kind of like the same thing you were saying. I love these characters more, but I couldn't put it higher than four. My top three are like, I don't think anything's touching them. And Unmasked was so good. The sets were amazing. I liked that we had a story there. I do agree with you, Jonathan. You brought up the Invisible Man earlier. He did not need to be there.
oh
I will
no,
die on that hill. And I'm sorry for the people that love him. I know people were really happy to see him. He was so shoehorned in there. And I feel like he was more shoehorned in than Quasimodo was.
oh
Even though
definitely.
Quasi only had that one little light, that one big room and then the kind of corner hallway, he felt more lived in that area. And I guess it is because it's Paris, but I didn't like the Invisible Man. But besides that, I loved the rest of this house. I
Mhm.
loved the scenes that we got. I do wish it was a little less opera house, but the farther away we get
A
from
lot
it,
less, but
yeah,
whatever.
Okay.
yeah. But the farther away we get from it, I don't dislike it. Like I love it more and more, and I just think it is, like Mike said, my attachment to the characters. So
Well, I can piggyback right off this because my number three is Universal Monsters Unmet. I'm kidding. It's absolutely not. It's not on my list, so
I was
I'll
gonna.
get to
You
talk
just said
about
it wasn't on your list.
it.
You literally just said.
Yeah, I know. People
I
don't
was
pay
like, there's
attention.
no
People
way.
don't pay
There's no
attention.
way.
Yeah,
We
I
would be
think.
skipping Jonathan, but it is my number three. So, but
Oh, well, hold on. Wait. Um, yeah, I think it's a fine enough house. I think it's with the Universal monsters, even the worst of them are still better than your average house by quite a bit. So
yeah,
it's not a weak house. It was not good enough for my top 10. Um, but I think they did do a lot well. They just did too much not well. Opera House
yeah.
Very well said.
and Invisible Man and story and how they. Anyways, fun house though. Fun house.
But I can see why Unmasked is not certain people's favorites. I totally get that.
Mm.
All right. My number four is finally here. It didn't take too long from when you guys last said it. It's The Last of Us. Um, I really love this house. Uh, once like I think the second or third week hit, I just ended up like being really high on this house throughout pretty much the entire rest of the season. I loved it. I was lucky enough to just get fantastic runs. I don't know why. But like the scare actors always scared the shit out of me, like every time. And so in regards to pacing issues, I see that they were there. There were runs where I did encounter the pacing issues and I did start to realize the flaws, but there were so many other runs that for some reason scare actors would like kick my ass in like those sections that were supposed to be kind of quiet that I really had a fun time. I think I really think these are my favorite sets that I've seen at Halloween Horror Nights. That I remember clearly. 28, I kind of don't count a lot of that because I don't remember a lot of those clearly. So Seeds might have been better, but at least like the ones I've been through a lot and got to see the most and have a ton of walkthroughs. I think Last of Us is like my favorite set house. The way that they used not only size and scale, but like putting huge buildings like farther in the house and decorating them to make it seem like the world is so much bigger than this little section here. Um, I mean, that's fantastic. Everything you guys said about the makeup, the direction, the way they moved was very like the games. The Easter eggs throughout the entire thing. I was blessed being able to do an unmasking the horror tour of this house, and my God, was it beautiful! It was gorgeous, and the amount of detail they put in every scene, like seeing Joel's bag and the gas mask and a hotel key card, and so many other things in this house were really cool. I loved it. Had a great time. Those bloaters were scary as hell. Very good house. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I already talked about this one. Not on my list. Sorry. All right. I will move on then to my real number three. And this, it actually became a really close toss up with number two. But I think for personal reasons, I am going to stick with HHN 21's The Forsaken at number three. I honestly believe this is maybe the most immersive house ever. A lot of people say Dead Man's Pier now. I think this beats the hell out of it. And one thing Mike pointed out is that a lot of people thought that like light up green eyes was really goofy. I loved it. I thought it worked really well, especially because something they did is they had like static props like kind of further back, scattered around animatronics to make it really flesh out and fill out. So there's just fucking terrifying green eyes in like every corner, and I thought that worked really well. The 4D effects in this were the best we'd ever seen at the time, by far, in my opinion. The scale was great. It used a lot of different effects, unique effects. Um, it told a story very well. It's it, it's like a phenomenal house. It's an all timer. I I don't know that I could say anything bad about the house that would actually put it at number three and not two or even one. It just all becomes personal preference at that point. But I truly believe this is one of the most immersive houses of all time, and it deserves a lot more recognition than it gets these days. To be fair.
Yeah, what a stacked year.
Oh,
There was
21 was insane. And that probably
yeah,
hurts it is when you look back at 21, like you can
yeah,
realistically put like 4 5 houses above this. I think I
yeah.
probably only have like two above it, maybe, but still, I could see why people would put like more. Um, but yeah, it just feels like one of those like borderline or full out all timer, depending who you are. It just kind of forgotten because it was in such a stacked year.
And you're right, Duff. I remember like they had, you didn't know what were going to be like green eyes that were just like static props and green eyes that were like actually on like an actual character. Like they did do like the green eye freak out like
All the time.
all the time. You're
And
like
it worked
yeah.
really well because I think we've talked about it plenty on this show. HHN 29's Stranger Things. All I did is complain about static props. That's how you do it right. They hit them in the dark for the most part. You just see the glowing green eyes. And sometimes someone would be jumping out of that dark corner. And sometimes they wouldn't.
Yeah.
You never knew.
You
So
didn't know what was a static prop and what wasn't. Yeah.
they really were able to like fill out like the scare actor cast, if you will, by using static props super effectively in that house.
Sounds like my worst nightmare.
Oh, it would scare the shit out of you.
I can imagine.
In the best way possible.
Yeah.
My number three is Universal Monsters Unmasked. I talked about it a little bit earlier. This one is just, for me, it's just a personal thing. I think, the facade is amazing. The storytelling for me is amazing. I do understand the criticism. I do think that the possibly if you just had like a versus house of a Phantom versus Jekyll, it would probably would have been a little bit better. But that being said, what we got here was really amazing. I love what they tried to do. I do love the Quasimodo scenes. I think the what they tried to do with Invisible Man, I think was fun as well. I like Invisible Man way better over at Hollywood, but again, I really love this house, and it's my number 3.
He tried to steal your hat in
He
Hollywood.
did. Like, I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God.
The
Orlando City fan.
yeah, I have a twin flame. And that is the Invisible
Ooh.
Man. In Hollywood.
Mike went out to Hollywood and found love.
Apparently.
That's your own Love is Blind. You don't know what he looks like.
Right,
He
I
knows
don't.
what you look
No,
like.
I
Love is Blind HHN edition. You scare act across the hall from each other, but you never
I
know what
guess
each other
not.
looks like without the mask. All right. My number 3. I think everyone else is done talking about it, but I've talked about my love for this house for a long time. And that is Seeds of Extinction.
Mhm.
I have always been a very big Seeds fan, and Mike, you would have loved it.
Oh,
I know you would have. We would have been giggling through the house if we known each
it
other.
would have
by
been
then.
probably my favorite of the year. I really do think it would have been my favorite.
What a stacked year, but like honestly, Duff, like you said, the built out facade, the bus, it made such an impact from the moment you were like getting towards the end of your time in line and about to walk into the house. And I didn't have Express back then. So like that was part of it, was building up the vibe, waiting in the line outside the bus, the sound of like things crumbling around you or whatever, like, and walking in and expecting kind of one thing and then seeing just everything, all of the set dressing just kind of decrepit and falling apart and overdressed and overgrown with all of these leaves. And like someone who used to do set dressing for theater, it was like the coolest set design I've ever seen that we didn't get to appreciate because they had to cover it all up. And I loved that. I loved the plane. I loved the costume design. It was genuinely one of the scarier houses for me because they blended in so well. So I was getting wrecked in every single run. And we also, I don't know if it lasted most of the run, but there was that like falling wall effect. And I got to see it like right in the beginning of the run. Fucking scariest shit I've ever had in a house because I legitimately thought it was falling apart. Just, I love everything about this house. I loved Descendants, which is its cousin sister house. Like, I will always love a post-apocalyptic vibe. And I can't wait to see if we do this again, maybe with actual bioluminescence, like full bio, whatever we get that's like a Seeds proper sequel or prequel or whatever, I will be the first in line for that house.
That just has to be terrifying. Like you're just walking through and you're like, oh no, shoddy workmanship. Volley. And no, it's meant to do that.
Literally, because it was like a whole flat. Like it was like a
Oh,
whole
no.
wall's coming at you and you can't see anything. They're like shining a strobe light and it's all glowing around you. And then there's also like a scare actor in a ghillie suit with a hand puppet. Like the whole house was hand puppets. You remember those like McDonald's? I think we've talked about this on the show before. The McDonald's ones they used to give you at Animal Kingdom over in Restaurantosaurus, the like Carnotaur hand puppet. It was like those. Like a million of those, just like weird little like chicken head looking things. Amoebas.
I would have loved this.
Mike, it was so good. I will be, if Seeds has one fan, it's me. I will always be a Seeds of Extinction fan.
Well, you don't have to worry about that because a lot of people love it.
I know.
Myself included.
It was a very good house.
I can understand why you were overwhelmed though, because that was holy shit.
It was so overwhelming. I wish I got to do it a second time because that first time there was so much happening at once. There was so much surrounding me, like so many, like, you know, like you said, Easter eggs and plants and effects and everything. I just and the way that the scares blended in with the environments and stuff. I just walked out scared. You know, just like I don't know what I saw, but I liked it. It was a very fun experience, for sure.
Is that the last time we had the tilted floor too, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've had it in a very long time.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I remember because I was in a wheelchair that year, so we went through. I don't want to. Yeah, of course I was in a wheelchair. And I remember even on the wheelchair path, they had 2 scare actors, so we were getting wrecked the whole time. We did not miss anything.
You probably thought you had a free pass.
Oh, I fully did. Daniel and I were like, la la la. It was terrifying.
All right, now we're oh, this is my number 3, and this one is gonna, like, everyone's gonna have this on their list. This is gonna be the lowest out of all of them, but I still really fucking love this house with all my heart. I think it's a very, very, very good house. I just don't think, for me personally, it tops the ones above it, but it's very good. Um, and that's Graveyard Games.
He's so scared to say
I
it.
know
I
it.
am.
I know
It's
it.
top 3. It's
It's
very
three.
good.
I'll
Hey,
take it. I'll
we
take
we
it.
didn't boo you.
I
thought
Don't
about
defend
it.
yourself.
I thought about it. His voice was shaking though.
I mean, I was prepared. I was like, why
Graveyard
isn't it
Games?
1? No.
Someone had to break up the consensus
Yeah.
number one, right? I mean,
Let's be real. This episode was just everybody rank your 10 through 9, and then Duff,
10,
Jess,
10
and
through 9.
Mike. Or 10 through whatever. You know what? It's been a long day. Yeah. And Jonathan, please go on about your graveyard.
Yeah, you guys will talk about it a lot later, so I don't need to say much. But I thought the setting, they nailed the setting. The sets in here were fantastic. The story was told really well, and not only was the base story told, like, anyone can walk through that house and understand what's going on. But there's also a lot, you can always look a lot deeper into it through the games they had on the Facebook Messenger, or just looking at the projections outside itself that held so many details and clues about what deeper story was happening in here. And I wish I was a local during 29, because I would have ate that shit up. I didn't have time to. They didn't go that much, but I would have, like, loved diving deep into all the hidden meanings and stuff like that, hidden stuff in that house. The fact that the intro was so good with with Sid coming out, and just, like, it was scary. It I'm gonna repeat myself. The effects were good. The children's scene, when I first saw that, I remember walking into that room and just screaming, like, "What the fuck!" Like, it felt like it came out of nowhere, yet it still fit in the story, but it was so terrifying. Just a room full of, like, ghost kids, with the sound that played, the music that played. Scary, very scary, intense. And it's still, besides Bugs, which uses it in a different way, so I can't really count it. It is my favorite usage of that, just hallway that has, just completely blocks all sound. And it's just completely immersive, and you can't hear anything, and besides what they're pumping in. That was very terrifying. So yeah, very good house. Top 3. It's probably in my, like, top 10 of all time. Yeah, I love Graveyard Games. Very good house.
Such a good house that I'm going to speak for the other 3 of us and say we'll be biting our tongues.
yes.
So I'll hop into my number 2. And kind of for a very similar reason that Unmasked made a nice jump up the board for both Mike and Jess. Just personal attachment and a specific character in it. So it's going to be HHN 31's Legends Collide. I've just always wanted a mummy house, man. Always. And I got it to the fullest extent, basically. And it came not just as the mummy, but it is also a great house otherwise. I think from the second you walk into that open facade, and then it just gets claustrophobic as fuck after that. They ramp up the scares. The show scenes were fun. That fucking triple scare, obviously, I've never seen so many people get so wrecked so consistently. The rotating winner at the end, there was just so much fun about it. Just watching people get so terrified, the scare factor in a house like that, especially after, like, the first week, it didn't really have that, and just seeing that cast ramp up and be so consistent after that. It took what was, like, a great house that had really good build, and made it a absolute top tier house.
I'm gonna piggyback off of you because that's
Yeah.
actually awesome.
I was letting you do it. I was letting you. I figured it was your number two.
Yeah,
So
Yep.
yeah, for sure.
Wow, we're so unique, guys.
I know. No, everything you said, I don't have, obviously, the connection to the mummy, but I went in kind of a hater because I did not expect to love it because I don't love those 3 characters. And y'all saw I was a believer by the end of 31, and I will still say this is my second favorite Monsters house of all time, but first favorite for Parade Buildings. So it's so good.
All right, my number two is Universal Monsters 2019. Um, what can you say about this house? I obviously I think I had it in three or four at the time, but definitely time and a fondness of this house is really, I think, made me enjoy it even more than I did during the event. I don't know. It's just a perfect mashup house. You get to see all of your classic Universal monsters, which I have a strong affinity for. I think some amazing special effects. Um, it's just it's near perfect in my opinion, and it is my number two.
Well, I'm gonna jump in right after you because my number two is also Universal Monsters 2019. Uh, Pretty much everything you said. This house is so good. It's my second favorite Monsters house, um, and uh, and yeah, I think it hits all the right notes. I mean, I always think about those effects of the Hunchback going all the way up, or the mirror room with Phantom, or the fact that you were under the water with Creature. They nailed every setting so well. With the little amount of time it had, it really nailed it. The finale was absolutely fantastic and fucking terrifying, with not only like Dracula like peeking from behind a corner and Wolfman and scaring the shit out of you, but also having Frankenstein run at you full speed. Absolutely terrifying. I think they did those Universal monsters justice with every house, but I always look like, especially on this house. I love this house so much, and I miss it, especially doing that Universal monsters ranking we did. Really made me sit back and go like, damn, I love this house. I really do. And I didn't love it that much when in the year itself. I think I was like you, Mike. I had it at like 4 or 5, or or it was somewhat in the middle, little above that. But as time has gone on, I'm just realizing how much those scenes really impacted me. And Yeah, that's why it's at number two.
It is interesting that both you and Mike had it jump over time, and mine it dropped just a tad. Not a lot,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
but just a tad. That is interesting.
Same.
Yeah, it is really. I wonder why that is.
I think again for me, my big thing is I've kind of seen the style of Monsters House I prefer. The thing that is still my second favorite Monsters House, but I think just missing story has kind of slowly had it drop just a tad for me.
Makes sense.
But let's move on to our number ones.
The
There,
hive mind.
there, there's
Hello.
no suspense here, so I do want to say something else that I've realized during this episode. That talking specifically about parade warehouses makes me miss the event so much. Like in my head, when I think about just being at HHN, it's like walking to and from parade warehouses and standing outside of them. I don't know
100%.
why. I don't know why that is. But in my mind, that is HHN. And realizing that that might not happen this year or ever again potentially, it's hitting me. It's scary.
Oh God.
It's
Yeah.
scary because we could talk about this with sprung tents, which I think are stronger locations for me. We could talk about sitting at bars or walking through scare zones or whatever these things that are HHN at their core. But for whatever reason, the parade warehouses are what like bring me there. Just thinking about it, I feel like I'm there, and it makes me miss it a lot. So it'll be sad if we don't get to experience them again.
I
That like. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I was gonna say maybe because I missed last week or something, but I'm still in the denial phase.
Uh,
Like I just like I can't accept that we're ever
yeah.
going to, because I even asked you guys off like before we recorded. I was just kind of like, ever they're never coming back ever. Like I just can't wrap my head around. They were just such a iconic part of the event. I just can't imagine that we never get parade warehouses like again. Like
Yeah.
I haven't accepted it yet. I'm
And we should point out for anyone listening though, there is no specific rumor that they're never coming back. It's only that they will not be here for the time being, specifically this year. But with other things happening, it seems like it is possible.
I mean, that makes sense to me because if they were like putting final touches on the construction of the DreamWorks area, I understand that maybe you don't want to, bring people back there right now until that comes
Mhm.
out. I just can't wrap my hand around that they're never coming back.
Yeah. So I also don't believe never. I think we could see a pretty decent period, but I think if you're looking to add additional houses, it's going to be the easy place to go, right? So I
Mm.
think one day we will see the parade warehouses again.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
I,
mean,
I don't, but it sounds like we're going to take some time off for sure.
unless DreamWorks is like, no, we can't have, we're going to completely shut that area down and just logistically getting people back there.
Maybe.
It's just going to be like, that we can't have we don't want,
The
these
minion
properties.
effect.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
We're coining that term. The minion
Potentially.
effect.
Mm.
But, and they're just like, okay, I guess.
Yeah. Dang, y'all made me really sad now about
Sorry.
this.
Let's be happy and talk about our number
Oh,
one
yay.
house in a parade warehouse.
What could
Uh,
it be, Duff?
it's going to be HHN 29's Graveyard Games.
Shocker.
We are going to the Ascension Parish Cemetery. We're going to visit Sid and Nancy and scary ass glowing mommy.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I call Rhea
Um,
Ripley.
this house was just like so. You know how people talk about the poltergeist facade, which I think is phenomenal, right? I think
Yes.
to me this is that,
Thank you.
but higher for me personally, because it does basically the same thing, right? It brings the rain, it brings the wind, it brings the cold. It's this huge scale facade, and it really feels like you're walking into a legit cemetery. The interaction with the scare actor you get at that moment, it's like funny too. Like it's a funny but scary start. Um, so I think just from the beginning, it sets you off on such a good foot. And if you're into that fucking graveyard aesthetic, then you're gonna love every other piece of this. I think the funny shit they did, like put Sid up on the wall holding his phone while his mom's on
Mhm.
FaceTime,
Yeah.
like stuff like that is just hilarious. But then they had so many fucking cool effects. The like hallway where you walk down and the candles blow out like in a row.
Yeah.
There's so much, and Jonathan already knocked out a lot of it. That silent hallway, well, I guess whispering hallway, the room filled with the fucking creepy ass children, where it opens up again and becomes another large scale set. There's just so much good about this house, and I feel like it never lulled at any point for me. There was always something interesting in every single room.
I'll let you go next, Jess.
Okay, are you sure?
Yeah. I'll let you go.
Okay. I mean, you guys have already said it. Neither of you have mentioned the Smilers though.
I was about
No,
to mention the
there we go.
Grinners. Yes.
The Grinners, I'm sorry, they are. I was watching a video earlier. Not that I needed a refresher, but I will always watch a Graveyard Games walkthrough if I have a chance. And I jumped at one of them jumping out because it caught me off guard. So they're still fucking me up 5 years later. If that tells you anything on what this house impacted me. Like, this was my first year living in Orlando, and this was like the first time that I had a house that I clicked with from the get-go. I knew my favorite house from day one. It never had a lull. Even in like my rankings, I never had a bad run, and I've never like had a repeat house like this that's impacted me as such. So, potentially losing the place where like it was like I'm like kind of sad about it. I didn't think I was going to be that sad, but like if we never got to go back into the old parade warehouse, I think I would be upset.
Oh,
Just so I
I will
couldn't be
definitely
like,
be upset.
this is where Graveyard Games was, my
Mhm.
baby. Like I just yeah, I could go on and on forever. I have about this house, but it is literally if you could take an essence of Jess, it is Graveyard Games.
Essence of Jess.
The perfume.
HHN365.com. You can get that sent now.
Oh god. I feel like it would be more essence of all well, three of us at least. So essence of 365.
Yeah, I mean you guys have covered most of it, but I'm gonna wax poetic a little bit. That just yeah, there's so many things that they do so perfectly. The story is just so fun. The facade, as you mentioned, Duff, is like one of the best that they've done. The special effects are amazing. The Grinner is probably the most terrifying character that I think we've nearly ever had at HHN, at least in my opinion. Like, and it's, you know, like, I think a lot of people agree with my opinion too. Like, the way people were talking about that particular character, it's just like, it was iconic for that year. Um, this house had such terrifying moments that I don't like. For if you did not experience this house, it was like the slowest house. It felt like it was like 20 minutes long, because one, it was a very long house, and two, it would get so backed up in the actual house because people would literally not want to continue further. It was so scary to people.
The whisper room.
The whisper room,
specifically.
especially.
So many people literally had to talk to the attendant and exit from there
Yeah.
instead of going through. Like, they would walk in and then walk right back out.
Yeah.
So you always like had to slow down, especially in that same corner. You're like, oh, someone's leaving.
It's just so iconic. When I close my eyes and think of an HHN house, it is Graveyard Games to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just, they do so many things really well. I know it's not everyone's favorite house, but it is mine, or close to it.
Yeah, it's a lock-in top 3 for me. Probably number 2 right now, I would say. And I missed one very important thing about this house. I talked earlier about how important storytelling is to me. How did I not bring it up for Graveyard Games?
Yeah.
We've talked a lot recently about, like, in Hollywood this year, how much Joel and Ellie there were in Last of Us. No, this is how you use 2 characters to
Yes.
advance the story throughout the
That's a
entire
great point.
house.
Yes.
That's how
Definitely.
you do it.
And they were not in your face the whole time.
Nope, they didn't have to be
at
No.
all.
because it was just good storytelling. And to add on to that storytelling, there were 3 levels to the storytelling you could get. You could simply walk through the house and pick up what's going on. You could walk through the house and read the messages that are scrolling on the exterior facade and pick up additional story from there. Or while you're in queue or home, like I did, you can go on Messenger yourself and literally talk to, automated responses, but they give you the entire story of the house. Like, the deepest backstory that every HHN nerd dreams of seeing. They literally said, just go on Facebook Messenger and you can do that. We're going to give it all to you.
Yeah, this house came out of nowhere too that year. I remember they announced it like very near the end of the season, and it just I mean, I had on a lot of hype lists. It was before we were doing hype lists, but I had it so low in my expectations, and it just blew me away. I think it blew a lot of people away.
One thing I remember is it was part of spec for like the whole year, but it was simply called like Graveyard or
Ghost in the Graveyard.
Ghost Graveyards.
Yeah.
And that's just all it was called the whole time. It was kind of like, that's all we know about this. And basically all we knew until like right before it was announced. And it's finally like, okay, Graveyard Games, that's what it's going to be. Then it got announced. And what they gave you for the announcement still wasn't much. So it's like, okay, Graveyard with ghosts. Cool.
And also, like, when we got it, all we got was the artwork for the house,
Yep.
And not knowing the house, it was like, okay, but knowing the house, it is arguably like it gives me what I want in the best way for the house, in a way that I don't know we've matched. Like, that is such iconic. Like, when you see Graveyard Games, I see it in my head.
It means so much to me. But at the time, to be fair, they kind of failed because the artwork did not hype me up at all for the house. It just looked so generic. Again, until you walk through the house, and then it's like, oh, I see. Got it. Yeah. Makes sense.
Oh, I miss you, Graveyard Games. I hope Sid and Nancy are doing great.
I got bad news for you.
For the record, I just watched a walk through. It is 5 minutes and 45 seconds long, and this is Theme Park HD, who notoriously does not cut anything from their videos. So
and that's probably a smooth run. You sometimes are in there for like 7 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes it felt forever.
Like, I got stuck by the Grinners, and I was miserable.
Yeah. So a very long house for just objectively, but it felt even longer.
Absolutely.
We need to let Jonathan talk now about his number one.
No one cares. We talked about Graveyard Games. We're done. Good
That's
night.
true. All
See
right.
you in the
Goodbye.
streets.
So, I've already talked about this one a lot, so it really doesn't matter too much. But it's obviously the Weekend After Hours Nightmare. Not only my favorite parade building house, but my favorite house of currently of all time. That could change, but right now it's my favorite. Um, and instead of like talking about why I love this house, because I've done that in detail, we have a whole episode about why I love this house. Literally, I want to talk about just what it means, like in terms of like the parade building, because when I think of the parade buildings, like I've been to a lot. There's 10 on here. This is the one I think I'm gonna think about. Like when I go back to like the parade buildings. If someone just says, "Hey, do you remember those?" It's gonna be this one because the vibe that it gave off in the queue was unmatched. I don't think any other house location can pull this off so well. Regardless of what property it is, if it's a music property, it's whatever. Because of the way it's set, it's laid out like a concert. The lights were so perfectly shining. You had the projection right there. It was always the best place to wait in, and always like got you hyped up for the house. And primarily because of not only the music, just because the location itself, the queue itself, because I didn't have Express that year, felt like a concert, and that's what I'm gonna remember most when it comes to the parade buildings. Except besides just the insides of the house, which is my favorite, the storytelling, the costumes, the way it's laid out, the hidden meanings, and all the scenes that I think are hidden meanings, and I'm not just making shit up. I'll never know. Like I love this house to death. It's my favorite, but yeah, it is when I think of the parade buildings possibly going away. I'm gonna miss that vibe, that location, that memory of all that happening in the queue. Probably the most. Uh, so uh, so yeah, I'm not ready for it to potentially go. I'm not. Last of Us did not recreate that vibe at all. It was very sad and slow and made me sleepy. Weekend was a lot more fun.
I was about to say how much that hurt Last of Us. Like, had it just happened and the weekend was not before that, we probably wouldn't have thought anything of it.
Mm-hmm.
But going straight from the party atmosphere to dum 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 dum.
So depressing. Like, uh, it did not hold the vibe at all. Like the thing is, even if they just played the entire like Last of Us soundtrack, like all the music, it probably would have been fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't
I
have. I probably wouldn't have thought anything of it had they done that because it does have a pretty good score overall.
It really does. Like there's some songs in there that I sometimes just put on because like these are pretty good. But yeah, just that one song over and over again hurts. But
Which is
but
a
yeah.
which is a great theme. It's just short and being repetitive is not helpful for it.
No, well, we almost had the same problem with the weekend where they only played 3 songs for a little bit, and we're like, all
Hmm.
right, let's add to it. And they eventually did, thank goodness. But yeah, repetitiveness is not good for that space. But yeah, I'm gonna miss you, parade building and the weekend, and yeah,
We made that sad at the end. Happy but sad.
very sad.
All right, I believe that's everybody's. All right. Well, we will be back next week. You can always find us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at HHN365 and at TikTok at HHN365pod. We have an amazing Discord. The link is in the description, and you can find our merch shop at HHN365.com. You can always leave us a voicemail at 407 906 4134, and we'll see you in the streets.